Hello everyone, this is Cephalon and welcome to my Warframe video. Today we're taking a look at the Latron Prime Incarnon, a weapon that has gone from a classic semi-automatic rifle to one of the strongest explosive primaries in Warframe thanks to the Incarnon Genesis system. If you've only ever used the Latron in its base form, you're in for a surprise because the Incarnon version plays like a completely different weapon. The goal of this build is to spend as much time as possible in Incarnon form. Charging it is quick and easy, since you only need to land a handful of headshots before transforming. Once you're in Incarnon form, you'll spend the rest of the mission firing explosive projectiles that bounce around the room, wiping out groups of enemies with every shot. Instead of firing regular bullets, the Incarnon form launches explosive projectiles that ricochet off surfaces before detonating. Every bounce gives the projectile another opportunity to explode, making it incredibly effective against groups of enemies. Combined with excellent critical stats, high status chance, and the ability to fully armor strip enemies through its Incarnon Evolutions, the Latron scales exceptionally well into Steel Path, endurance missions, and just about any content you throw at it. Before jumping into the build, it's worth mentioning the difference between the two Incarnon variants. While Latron Wraith has slightly higher critical chance and about 20% more fire rate, Latron Prime ultimately comes out ahead thanks to its much higher base damage and status chance. In practice, that translates to roughly 15% more burst DPS and around 24% more sustained DPS, making the Prime the stronger choice overall. For the Incarnon Evolutions, Riddled Target is the clear winner for Evolution 2. Applying puncture grants up to 100% additional multi-shot for 8 seconds, giving a massive boost to both your direct damage and your explosions. Evolution 3 is mostly personal preference. I personally use Extended Volley because I like having the extra magazine capacity. If you aren't planning on running Stabilizer in the Exilis slot, Marksman's Hand is another great option thanks to its large recoil reduction. For Evolution 4, Flensing Spikes is easily the strongest choice. Every puncture proc removes 20% additive armor, meaning you can completely armor strip enemies with just 3 or 4 Incarnon shots. Since the explosions hit multiple enemies at once, you'll often end up stripping entire groups without even trying. This is the build I've been using throughout this video. Feel free to pause and screenshot it now if you want to copy it later. With that out of the way, let's break down the reasoning behind each mod slot. We'll start with Semi-Rifle Cannonade, which provides a huge amount of base damage right from the start of the mission instead of waiting for your arcane to stack. It also completely negates the fire rate penalty from critical delay, making the two mods work perfectly together. Next is Galvanized Chamber, and this one is absolutely mandatory. The massive multi-shot bonus dramatically increases both your direct damage and the number of explosions you're creating with every shot. Critical Delay is another core mod, providing a massive increase to critical chance. For critical damage, we're using Vital Sense together with Hammer Shot. This combination pushes the weapon up to roughly a 9.5 times critical multiplier, allowing Tier 3 red crits to reach an incredible 26.5 times damage multiplier. Hammer Shot also provides additional status chance, helping you apply puncture more consistently and keeping both Riddled Target and Flensing Spikes active. For our elemental setup, we're using primed cryo rounds. The Incarnon form already comes with innate heat damage, so adding cold automatically creates blast. Thanks to the recent blast changes, every bouncing explosion can repeatedly trigger blast procs across groups of enemies, resulting in chain explosions that spread through entire rooms. It's one of the biggest reasons this weapon clears crowds so effortlessly. Next is Rifle Elementalist, which significantly increases the damage of blast and your other status effects. Since blast contributes such a large portion of this weapon's damage, this mod ends up being one of the biggest multipliers in the build. Serration gives us another source of base damage, helping maintain strong damage output before our Arcane has fully ramped up. That said, this slot is very flexible, and we'll go over some excellent replacement options a little later in the video. For the Exilis slot, this one really comes down to personal preference. I use Primed Stabilizer since it almost completely removes the weapon's recoil and makes it much more comfortable to fire. If you're already using Marksman's Hand as your Evolution 3 choice, then Vigilante Supplies is another great option. Besides helping with ammo economy, it also gives you a chance to upgrade your critical hits. Outside of the main build, there are several worthwhile alternatives depending on your playstyle. If you value movement speed, Amalgam Serration is a great replacement for Serration, providing nearly the same damage while making your Warframe noticeably faster. If your damage already feels high enough, Primed Firestorm is one of my favorite comfort mods. While it only increases the explosion radius by 1.44 times, that actually translates to just over double the explosion area, making crowd clearing even more satisfying. To use it, replace Serration. For players with good aim, Double Tap offers the highest damage ceiling in the build, granting up to a 5 times multiplicative damage bonus. The downside is that you need to consistently land direct hits within 2 seconds, so it's much less forgiving than Semi-Rifle Cannonade. It pairs especially well with Galvanized Aptitude. Speaking of Galvanized Aptitude, it's worth mentioning that its damage bonus only affects direct hits and not the Incarnon explosions. However, it is multiplicative with mods like Serration, Semi-Rifle Cannonade, and your Arcane, while also providing another 80% status chance. If you enjoy landing direct hits instead of relying entirely on the explosions, it's definitely worth considering. If you'd rather fire faster, Vial Acceleration is another excellent option. It significantly increases your practical DPS, although you'll need to replace Semi-Rifle Cannonade to make room for it. Finally, Malignant Force is an option if you want to add viral damage. In this showcase, I'm using Nourish, which already grants viral, so I skip this mod and still get the benefits of both Blast and Viral. If you're lucky enough to own a Riven, the ideal combination is critical damage, multi-shot, and then either critical chance or damage. If your Riven includes critical damage, simply replace Vital Sense with it. For Arcanes, Primary Merciless is my default recommendation. It provides consistent damage throughout the mission and doesn't require any specific playstyle. If you're comfortable consistently landing headshots, Primary Deadhead becomes the stronger option. Since you'll already be aiming for heads to charge your Incarnon meter, it's very easy to keep the Arcane active while benefiting from its additional damage. Overall, the Latron Incarnon completely transforms one of Warframe's oldest rifles into an explosive powerhouse. Between the bouncing projectiles, constant blast explosions, full armor stripping, and incredibly strong scaling, it's one of the most satisfying weapons to use in the entire game. Whether you're tackling Steel Path, endurance runs, or simply clearing everyday missions, the Latron Incarnon has more than enough damage to handle it all. If you've never given the Latron Incarnon a chance, I'd highly recommend picking one up. It might just become one of your favorite primary weapons. Thank you for watching. Remember to leave a like if you found this video helpful, and subscribe for more Warframe guides. See you in the next one, 10-0.